than like 3 4 years before. But now a lot of VC funds have realized that CA has those skills, and CAs are also getting into venture capital. So now the networking effect has come into the play. There might be few CAs who is at the top of the fund who's hiring. They will also hire CAs, etc.
Hello everyone. Today I am with CA Chirag Goradia. He is in venture capital. Welcome Chirag. How are you? What is venture capital? And what is the difference between venture capital, investment banking, merchant banking?
Correct. Okay. To put it in a very simpler manner or in a layman language, I would like to put venture capital is somewhere between angel funding and private equity. I do understand both terms will be new, but venture capital is someone who helps company to grow from 0 to 1 and 1 to 100, and then there's a private equity who comes and takes it.
So as I said earlier, venture capital as a career is very less known.
Yeah.
And you as a CA entered into that career.
Mm.
So, and you have been surviving there, thriving there actually for several years, right? So, I want to ask you, how did you make a career as a CA in venture capital firm? What advantages does it give you? And I want to ask from the non-CA part as well, as you must have colleagues that are of non-CA background. So, how are they thriving there? Is there any difference? Are you getting any advantage, or are they getting any advantage because they are not from CA background?
Correct.
आप हमें help करो to understand what is the typical day of a VC looks like. आप हमें help करो.
Okay.
You are a CA. You entered into the VC space without any knowledge. Then you got good mentorship and you grew, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone would be so lucky to get an opportunity like that.
Mm.
So if someone wants to enter into a VC industry, what would be the basic skill set that VC expects from a person who is entering into this domain?
Something which is related to either investments or strategy or building yourself. So there are three broad themes. यहाँ से I mean again every theme is captured by different venture capital funds. So, yeah.
And if I ask, what are the 3 to 4 top venture capital firms that hire on a regular basis? So if I ask 3 to 4 names, can you list them?
There's not a lot of hiring. Forget about CA. There's not a lot of hiring into the venture capital fund team and on the investment side of things, because usually the teams are very lean, right? And people don't leave very often. So once an employee joins, usually the employee remains with the fund for almost their entire life.
When you invest in an early stage startup, or when you invest in a late stage startup, let's say, for example, Zepto, you invested at an early stage, or let's say, I don't think Zerodha will any way raise money, but let's say Zerodha now starts to raise money from a VC fund. So what will be the major difference between a late stage startup, early stage startup? All these things happen, and even it can be seen in Blinkit, Swiggy. People are leaving. So does venture capital, when investing, also look at the working space, working culture, or something like that? Hello everyone. Today I am with CA Chirag Goradia. He is in venture capital. Welcome Chirag. How are you?
Hey Prashant, hi. I'm doing really well. How about you?
I am doing great as well. So let's start this discussion without any further ado.
Yeah, sure.
Chirag, please introduce yourself.
Of course. Hi guys, I'm Chirag Goradia. By profession, I'm a chartered accountant. Apart from work, I'm also a sports enthusiast who play at least 2 sports in a week. In terms of work, I've been part of venture ecosystem since last several years. And yeah, I mean, happy to deep dive in any specific question if you guys are.
Okay, so let's start this discussion.
Yeah.
First, I want to clarify this कि venture capital is known, कि people जानते हैं कि they invest in unlisted market, or let's say some of the listed market, or they take part in the offer for sale, etc. But as a career, looking at a venture capital domain is not that much known, just
Yeah.
like the market research field. So let's get into that first. Ki what is venture capital and what is the difference between venture capital, investment banking, merchant banking?
Correct. Okay. To put it in a very simpler manner or in a layman language, I would like to put venture capital is somewhere between angel funding and private equity. I do understand both terms will be new, but venture capital is someone who helps company to grow from zero to one and one to 100, and then there's a private equity who comes in and kicks in. So now, what do you mean by zero to 100 when a company starts and has certain revenue where there's a no, I mean company is fairly small where they required money. That's where the venture capital funds kick in, and venture capital helps startup in two manner. Of course, one with the capital, that's your financially, they help them, and the second, they help them grow in every other manner. By what do you mean by every other manner is help them have a strategy in place, help them hire, help them in any other manner, right? So that's how what the venture capital role is.
Okay.
And in terms of, yeah,
And what about the difference between VC, IB, and merchant banking?
okay. So venture capital is an institution where they invest money and they in return they get equity in the company. While your investment banking and slash your merchant bankers are someone who help company raise money. Basically, in a layman term, I will put it in a manner that they help the company to they prepare the company and they help them to raise money in a certain manner. So, for an example, let's say you are a very early stage startup, right? So, you don't have a lot of things in place. You don't have your investment deck. You do not have financial model, etc., etc. So, in a nutshell, वो company को ready बनाता है venture capital को present करने के लिए, right? So it's much better have a banker because otherwise venture capital has a lot of requirement before investing. Yeah.
So IB kind of acts as a middleman.
Yes, IB is a middleman, but of course, not a lot of bankers will like to call them as a middleman. But it is a middleman. But yes, they help them in I mean, a lot of other things as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I want to distinguish between venture capital and merchant banking,
Merchant banking is also similar to what about iBanker does. I mean, of course, there's a lot of differentiation between iBanker and merchant banker, but to understand in a very layman term, it's just a similar thing to iBanker. But merchant banker has a lot of different things. For an example, they help the company to go IPO. They help them raise big chunk of money. Merchant banker is someone who signs them. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of overlapping between iBanker and merchant bank.
but I can say ki the IBs have more contact with the VCs, right, as compared to the merchant bankers because they come at the IPO stage of a company.
Exactly. That's right.
Mm.
Merchant banking only comes in once the company is fairly mature. There's few rounds of investing which is done from external investors, etc., and then they want to go public.
Okay. So as I said earlier, venture capital as a career is very less known,
Yeah.
and you as a CA entered into that career.
Mm.
So, and you have been surviving there, thriving there actually for several years, right? So, I want to ask you, how did you make a career as a CA in venture capital firm? What advantages does it give you? And I want to ask from the non-CA part as well, as you must have colleagues that are of non-CA background.
Mm.
So, how are they thriving there? Is there any difference? Are you getting any advantage, or are they getting any advantage because they are not from CA background?
Correct. Right. To answer your first question, I mean, I get this very often. How do I get into a VC, right? So, after doing my CA, at least one thing was very sure that what I don't want to do it. While I didn't knew about what I want to do it, but at least I was sure that I don't want to get into taxation and audit field, right? If after spending 3 years in my articleship, I've done both the stuffs. Of course, not very rigorously, but at least for 3 years, I mean, it's
Mhm.
quite definite
Yes.
time, right? So, So that was sure. So now coming, I mean, why I went to VC. So something which struck and which is very close to my heart is business, right? Because coming from a business family where all my parents, both my parents, is doing running their own independent business. So my dining table conversation is around business. So I was sure that I have some either I want to start a startup or join a startup or the other thing was venture capital, right? So I tried hard. Of course, it's very difficult to get into VC ecosystem, and especially when you don't have any experience, right? So
Right.
I tried hard. I was patient enough while every friend of mine or all, I mean, all were joining big fours and everyone was getting paid very well. I joined a venture capital fund, waited for quite some time because again it was difficult, but yes, you have to be, I believe I was at the right place at the right time. So that's where the journey began. I joined a fairly younger venture capital fund and then been with them. So set up, I was hired as a first employee of the fund.
Okay.
Set up the entire fund right from the scratch with my GP,
What
right?
was the name of the firm?
The is called Piper Serica Angel Fund, right?
Okay.
Me and Abhay hired me. Abhay was a general partner there.
Okay.
So we set it up right from the scratch, from drafting the documents to get the license from SEBI to building the team. Of course, there were a few people who supported us in every manner, and then we raising capital also. So we spoke to a lot of family office, HNIs, etc., etc., and then we started deployment of the fund.
Okay. And currently you are in that firm only, or have you changed?
Correct. No, no, I'm not no longer with that fund. I have moved to a bigger fund, which is called LC Nueva.
Okay.
Again, this is a venture capital fund, sector agnostic fund.
Okay. आप हमें help करो to understand what is the typical day of a VC looks like.
Okay. Fair enough. I believe there's no one answer to this. It changes every single day. So, but again, to sum it up, I believe majority of my day will be going to screen the investments which has come to us. So
Okay.
क्या होता है कि for an example, there will be 10-15 startups who will either email you or reach out to LinkedIn over LinkedIn or somewhere or either WhatsApp, somehow they'll get your number or something like that, right? Or there will be a few bankers which has reach out to you showing an opportunity, right? So majority of my time goes into screening opportunities or screening companies. The other half will be, again, I will give you the percentage, but the other half or other majority of my time will go networking with the bankers or with the early stage companies or with incubators or accelerators, right? To ensure that the fund has a robust deal pipeline, right?
Okay.
So that's the second thing. And the third thing, I believe, since in my fund, I've been given that opportunity to even do portfolio management, to talk with the company, how the company is performing against the plan, to strategize, to help them in any other manner possible. And of course, apart from this, there's some operation work in the fund. For an example, some portfolio reporting, how the fund is performing, investor reporting quarterly. But then again, that's like 5 to 10% of the time because that's
Okay.
quite limited. But majority, if you I want to put it in a percentage terms, I'll say okay, 40 to 45% will be in the deal screening. The rest, the remaining 30-35% will be somewhere around. I mean, for bringing new deals or networking. The remaining 5-10%, as I mentioned, will be in portfolio management, and the remaining chunk will be investor reporting.
Okay. So आपने बोला कि there is a chunk of time that you spend on networking with the IB incubators. So what are
Yeah.
incubators?
So incubators are someone who, I mean, so again, there are different kind of incubators, but just to give you an example, there are a few incubators who give them, for an example, either IIT, right, IIT
Okay.
Delhi. So they give them space, they give them, the professor or some mentors help them uh, with whatever they are building. They help them strategize it. They help them with some grants. and they help them in, I mean, just to begin the journey, right? So that's how the incubators work.
So basically, it's a VC term for mentorship.
I'll not say that. Maybe incubators work because incubators, a lot of incubators work really, really closely with the company. While not a lot of VC fund works very closely because they do not get involved in a day-to-day activity, while
Hmm.
incubators still get involved in day-to-day activity.
Okay. And when I say कि I'm networking with them, what do you mean by that? मतलब you are keeping in contact, you are connecting with them, or you are holding meetings with them. What kind of networking are we talking about here?
Correct. Of course, I mean, so networking is vast. I mean, so you have to go there, maybe you meet them, maybe you have a call with them over a video call or something, understand what kind of startups they are incubating, what kind of, I mean, what kind of sectors they are looking at or they are taking care of, right? So if that company, for an example, let's say they are into AI industry, right? So whether do you whether then that incubator center has any company which is ready now and want to raise money. So that's how you come in and maybe you get an opportunity to invest in that.
Hmm. Okay. So now let's move to the skill part.
Okay.
You are a CA, you entered into the VC space without any knowledge, then you got good mentorship and you grew, right?
Yeah.
So, but not everyone would be so lucky to get an opportunity like that.
Hmm.
So, if someone wants to enter into a VC industry, what would be the basic skill set that VC expects from a person who is entering into this domain?
Right. I mean, there's no one answer to this. Every VC fund requires different skill sets. So some VCs require an experience either into the investment banking or venture capital or maybe let's say angel fund, right? At least some kind of investment experience. While other VC fund who is operational heavy requires someone who has either worked in startup or who has done his own venture or I mean, who has started their own company and failed or succeed, right? So that's how it's bifurcated. But yes, of course, uh, the skill set which I believe can help you, one is either get into a startup, work there, understand the ground level of things, and then move to a venture capital. There will be it will be quite not quite easy, but it will be easier to get into VC. That's I mean through this route. The other
Okay.
route, I believe, एक बार investment banking में हाथ डाल लो, have spent some time for 2 years, and then get into, or then either spend some time in consultancy again, help companies strategize, or at least कुछ कर लो यार आजू बाजू, then maybe you get into VC because
Something related to strategic consulting or that kind of part, right?
something which is related to either investments or strategy or building yourself. So there are three broad themes. यहाँ से I mean again every theme is captured by different venture capital funds. So yeah.
Okay. And if I ask, ki, what are the 3 to 4 top venture capital firms that hire on a regular basis? So if I ask 3 to 4 names, can you list them?
Of course, I mean there are quite some. I mean
I mean,
again
I am
the
asking from a CA point of view कि जो CA को hire करते हैं, because there will be limited firms that hire CAs at a fresher level.
This was very true back then, like 3, 4 years before. But now a lot of VC funds have realized that CA has those skills, and CAs are also getting into venture capital. So now the networking effect has come into the play. There
Okay.
might be few CAs who is at the top of the fund who hires
Hmm.
hiring, so they will also hire CAs, etc. Right? So
Okay.
again, but to answer your question, see, there are a lot of VC fund. For an example, Norwest Ventures, right, which is
Hmm.
one of the global biggest venture capital fund, has a lot of CA. In fact, the current GP of Norwest Venture Partners is a chartered accountant. Right. Apart
Okay.
from this, there are other. I can literally list down a lot of venture capital fund, but yes. So this NVP, that's Norway's venture partner. The other is Nexus Partners, which also hires for CAs. Apart
Okay.
from this, the other top VC will be uh, we guys hire a venture. It's a lot of chartered accountants. Both I mean, all the two employees in the fund is both chartered accountants. But one thing you guys
Okay.
have to understand, I believe, there's not a lot of hiring. Forget about CA. There's not a lot of hiring into the venture capital fund team
Okay.
and on the investment side of things, because usually the teams are very lean,
Okay.
right? And people don't leave very often. So once an employee joins, usually the employee remains with the fund for almost their entire life, right? I mean, life of
Okay.
the fund, not their life of the person, but life of the
Mhm.
fund. So typically, the venture capital fund life is 7 to 10 years. So that
Okay.
person usually at least be with the fund on an average for 5 years. Of course, there's no thumb of rule. I mean, rule. Basically, there's no one thing to it, but yes, the
Mhm.
average life or average duration of a person joining a venture capital will be at least for 5 years.
Okay. And how is a VC firm structured, like from bottom to top? When we talk about, say, an equity research firm, it starts from associate level. You can go to, I think, fund manager level. So, what kind of structure is there in a VC firm?
Correct. I'll start from the top. So there will be either one or two partners depending on the size of the venture capital fund. If it's a bigger fund, then there will be more number of partners, right? But
Okay.
to keep it very simple, let's say it's a fund one. So there will be either one or two partners. In some cases, it might be three. So that's how the top layer is structured. Under them there will be either one VP or two VP depending again on the partners. If there is two or three partners, there will be two VPs. If there's one
Okay.
partner, then there will be one VP. Under that there will be either an senior associate or associate, and under that there will be one or two analysts. All depends on how big is the fund, right? If the fund is bigger,
Hmm.
then they can afford this many number of people.
And what would be the major level at which the CAs are hired, like VP, partner, or the bottom level?
It's across levels, yeah. So people, I've seen people moving from private equity who's a CA to becoming a partner in a venture capital fund. And of course, people like person like me, just for an example, I'm a chartered accountant. I started my journey from an analyst level. So it's across stages, yeah. Analyst, associate, VP, partner.
And how does the experience and the package varies from bottom to top or top to bottom?
Correct. I believe for first 0 to 3 years, you will be called as an analyst or senior analyst,
Okay.
where again, depending on the fund, global fund pays really well. The global fund benchmark for an analyst will be for somewhere, it's a very wide range. It will be from 20 lakh rupees up to upwards of 50 lakh rupees.
So minimum it's around 20.
Yes, yes. It's minimum. It will start with 20
Okay.
for a global fund, and for a domestic fund, minimum it will be at least with 14, 15 lakh rupees, and it might go up
Okay.
to 30 lakh rupees on an
Okay.
analyst level. And then after 3 year, or I mean, once you clear your analyst position, it's an associate. Again,
Okay.
for a global fund, it will be from 50 up to a crore,
Okay.
and then for a VP, of course, I mean anything above 1 crore. And
Okay.
then for a partner has a lot of things. I mean, so major portion is not their salary; it's the carry portion which they enjoy from the fund, right? They are not there for earning salaries. That's what I believe, and I have seen it.
Okay. And carry portion matlab?
So carry is something, for an example, carry is an performance fees which an venture capital fund charge. For an example, if a venture capital fund is the corpus of the venture capital fund is 1,000 rupees, so they'll invest 1,000 rupees for simplicity, and
Okay.
उसमें से suppose return बनता है, for an example, 3,000 rupees. So first they will return the 1,000 rupees
Hmm.
plus the hurdle, whatever hurdle rate the fund has. So let's say, okay, 1,000 plus 100 rupees, they will return back to the investor. So the remaining portion, which is 1,900, they will charge 20%, right, as a
Okay.
performance fee,
Yes.
right? So whatever comes to them, and then it gets distributed to employees, to the partners, and etc.
Okay. So it's
So that's called
similar
carry.
to mutual fund industry.
Yes, it's similar to mutual fund industry. And usually venture capital fund is structured as a 2 plus 20. So 2 is a management fees, which is charged every year, and 20% is a performance fee, which is charged after returning the capital or hurdle rate.
And this 20% would be variable, right?
Yeah, this is
As
variable. Of course, it's variable. I mean,
and does the partner also have a stake in the venture capital, like a percentage of that as a kind of an equity or something like that?
yeah, of course. I mean, so usually partner has to invest some portion out of the total corpus of the fund. That's called sponsorship, sponsor commitment. So they invest a small amount depending on what they want to. But yes, it's a rule by SEBI. Uh, I guess
Okay.
2.5% or some amount which is lower or something like that.
Okay. So now let's talk a bit about investing from VC's point of view. When you invest in an early stage startup or when you invest in a late stage startup, let's say, for example, Zepto, you
Hmm.
invested at an early stage, or let's say, I don't think Zerodha will any way raise money, but let's say Zerodha now starts to raise money from a VC fund. So, what
Hmm.
will be the major difference between a late stage startup, early stage startup?
Okay. See, yeah, I mean, late stage and early stage, first, the difference between them will be, of course, the valuation, right?
Yes.
So usually venture capital fund usually likes to come in at a early lifespan of the company, so that with minimum capital, they get a fair number of equity stake. That's one. The second, they like to work with the company, help them grow, right? So that's their job to help them, the company. Of course, all the heavy lifting is done by the founder. We can't
Mm,
take even a single person credit from them. But so the structure, I mean, the difference between two companies which you mentioned will be the one. The first will be very early in their PMF, that's product market fit, usually loss making,
mm,
while the other, the later stage or the mature company will be they have uh, already, they are already profitable. They have a product market fit established. They know what they are doing. So there is downs. I mean, the downside risk is quite limited in a mature
yes.
company compared to early stage companies.
Okay.
And of
So,
course, the other major reason, I mean, major difference will be the early stage companies will have a lot of early growth or very fast growth because the company is fairly small, and the
mm,
mature companies will not have that kind of fast growth.
yes, and that all these things that you said are visible in Zepto and Zerodha respectively.
Yeah, of
They are
course.
still burning cash, but they are growing at a very good rate. As much as I got to know from the research reports that are getting published on LinkedIn.
Correct. Yes, I mean, Zepto was a small company or maybe an early stage company a few years back, but I believe now Zepto is already much bigger, much mature companies.
Yes.
But of course, they are burning cash. But again, that is not the only single criteria where you can judge whether the company is early or late stage.
Here I want to ask a question about Zepto specifically. There were some rumors on Reddit, which again came onto LinkedIn about the working culture not best fit for everyone. The founders are forcing employees to work late, although there were no proof of it. But it was seen कि a senior person at Zepto left. All these things happen. Even it can be seen in Blinkit, Swiggy. People are leaving. So, does venture capital, when investing, also look at the working space, working culture, or something like that?
Of course. I mean, so that is very critical part of our diligence or any venture capital diligence because it's the people who will be building big businesses. It is like just like a team, right? Yeah, not only one employee cannot run the entire company.
Hmm.
So of course the culture, your how are you able to retain your employees for how long, etc. takes a very I mean good weightage in terms of diligence and before we moving ahead or any venture capital fund moving ahead. So yes, that's to answer your question. Yes, that's a very critical part for any diligence.
Okay. So now let's talk about someone starting out in VC. You have been here for several years. What advice would you give to someone who is who has been selected in a VC, let's say? He is starting out his career. What advice would you have for him or her to build a successful career in this domain?
Fair. Uh, okay. I believe one thing that really helped me is just to be very persistent about
Okay.
everything. So either it's networking, there might be scenarios where you are, I mean, not a lot of people will accept your LinkedIn request or will either revert to you or something like that. But you have to be very, very persistent in terms of continuously doing it and someone will answer. That's one. And once you have your network built, that's it's a network effect. It will help you in n number of things. The second thing I'll I mean, which literally helped me will be read a lot. So now reading a lot doesn't mean you read a newspaper, but I mean reading a lot you have to get into deeper into venture ecosystem or see what's the early trend, try to capture it so that you are also ahead of your curve. For an example, very layman terms, if you see in consumer industry, there's a lab grown diamond. I mean, of course,
Hmm.
now it's all. I mean, everyone knows about it, but few years back it was the next big thing. So you have to capture that early trend and you have to ensure that you are on your toes. So that's are the only two things. Keep reading and keep networking. That's it.
Okay. So when I talk about reading, what would be the top sources which you would suggest, which are available in public domain for reading, reports or anything that you are suggesting?
I mean, again, the top things which come to my mind is either you do Inc 42, your VCC. I mean, anything which has, I mean, startup news, right? So that will help you to see which kind of startups are getting funded by which kind of fund. That's one. The second thing, a lot of venture capital, which is very big enough. Like for an example, let's say DSG Capital, which is into consumer sector, which invests in consumer
Okay.
sector. They recently published a report on consumer. So, I mean, that is something which you can read depending on which sector you are focusing into. So, if there are a lot of basically in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is that there are few VC funds, there are few iBankers which publishes report in few sectors covering. So that is something which you can read.
Okay.
Sorry.
So now let's get back on the investing part. What are the major trends the VCs are focusing on for 2025 and the years ahead?
I mean, again, so the problem is key every VC fund has a different investment thesis. For an example, for us, I mean, I'll speak for my fund, is we do consumer, we do fintech, we do B2B marketplaces. These are the broad three segments. Apart from this, of course, we do other stuff as well since it's a sector agnostic fund. But so these are the three broad segments. So we'll see anything which is picking up in these three sectors, right? For an example, let's say, as I mentioned earlier, in consumer, uh, lab grown diamond is being picked up a few years back. So we
Yes.
were seeing few, I mean, 2 years back, lab grown diamond companies. Now, in fintech industry, there are, I mean, in financial service industry, there are a lot of demand in housing, affordable housing. Loans, right?
Okay.
So we'll see that industry. So again, it depends which sectors. For an example, if any fund which focuses on AI, right? So there are a lot of development in AI, deep tech industry, etc. Right? So there are those are the stuffs which you guys have to or anyone in the being in the venture capital fund has to pick up and see what the trend lies and where you can capture and make out most out of it.
Hmm. So, last question, Chirag.
Yeah.
There are a lot of rumors, a lot of misconceptions from the people who know about this VC industry a bit. So, if there are any misconceptions, rumors which you would like to burst today, कि ऐसा दिखता है but ऐसा है नहीं. Like when I was talking to the IB people, they were telling me कि it looks like a very cream industry, but
Hmm.
when you come and work in this industry, it's very, very, very stressful. And unless and until you are passionate about it, you won't survive. So these are the things which they were telling. So what is your point of view on the VC industry as a whole?
Okay. First, the rumors which were there before I joined, while it looks very glamorous from outside, believe me, it is not. Uh, and it is not that once you are in, you are sorted for your life. Believe me, it's a very fast moving industry. You have to be on your toes, irrespective of whatever position you be in, analyst, associate, VP, or partner. Otherwise, you'll be thrown out of the ecosystem. That's one. While it looks glamorous, it is not. The second, you have to be on your toes. And the third thing, yes, there are a lot of benefits compared to other traditional industry being into the VC ecosystem, because from VC you can have a lot of other career option if you are early in your career and join VC funds. Second, the biggest advantage what I see is you get to meet a lot of good people, very smart folks across industry. Be it, for an example, since we look at three industry, just imagine me meeting with founder of either consumer, fintech, or B2B marketplaces, right? So there are these guys are top notch people, which I believe you will not be able to meet in if you are not in venture capital ecosystem. So that's, yes, that's always been there. The networking is the biggest moat or advantage if you are into a VC ecosystem, for sure.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Chirag, for joining today. It was a very, informative for me personally as well, because there is not much content available about VC, career in VC on internet. So thanks a lot.
No, no, my pleasure. I really wanted to give this back because again, when I started my journey, the same problem I had, there were not a lot of material, not a lot of people, not a lot of podcast, which was there. But again, thank you to you as well for putting out the hard efforts and I mean helping the community as a whole. And happy to answer any other questions in case if any of your audience has it.
So I would encourage the audience to please comment on this video. You can reach out to Chirag on LinkedIn as well. The link will
Sure.
be provided in the description. Thanks a lot. One last question, Chirag.
Yeah.
If anyone among the audience reach out to you for a startup idea on LinkedIn, will you be available? Will you be checking out the message?
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, while I might take some time to revert, but I will be responding for sure for each of them, for sure.
I guess that's another opportunity.
No,
So
yeah.
thanks a lot, Chirag. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.